Hey everyone, Jennifer and Danielle here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jennifer Spohr and I work with visionary leaders who are feeling called to step into new levels of potential in their purpose and their mission. And I'm here with Danielle Grant. And Danielle, did you want to share what you're up to?
Yeah, for sure. My name is Danielle Grant, and I am the founder of the Spiritual Room, which is a high vibe container bringing everyone together to support the spiritual awakening and ascension, no matter what level of the spiritual journey you're on. If you're just awakening or you've been awake to the journey for a while.
Yes, I'm so excited to have this conversation today, too. And anyone who is joining us, please be sure to say hello and definitely feel free to participate in the conversation because we love engagement.
Hmm.
So today, this is actually the final video of a 4 video series that Danielle and I have been doing over the last several weeks around personal development. I think Danielle, you referred to it as soul expansion as well in a post this morning. Really, from the beginning, it was inspired around a video we initially shared around the shadow side of the personal development industry because both Danielle and I are passionate about providing you with real, actionable insights and advice that can help you to achieve sustainable transformation. So, with that being said, today we are talking about some signs to look for that may indicate that you can benefit from reaching out to invest in professional support and how to find support that is aligned for you. It's really unfortunate, but there are, people out there in the service industry that have, different agendas for maybe why they're in business. Um, and also people out there that may say that they provide a certain service and that may not actually be the case. I have to say, just kind of off the cover of the conversation for a second, I keep looking at the timer on this video and I saw 111 and then 222. And so I know this is a really important conversation we're having today with you guys. So again, whoever's joining us, please make sure to say hello. So anyways, I wanted to paint a picture for you all of why we're having this conversation today because we want you to feel like you can lean in for professional support if you need it, and also that you're able to find that aligned support for you that is going to help you to produce the results that you desire for your life. So I'm going to turn it over to Danielle. Did you want to add anything to open up the conversation?
I just think this is such a healthy conversation for people to listen to. I remember when I was looking for coaches and mentors too, and I remember what I was doing when I was attracting the wrong ones and finding myself in the ones that actually weren't aligned with me. And then I remember what it was like when I started to actually transition that. So I'm glad that we're talking about this today. But I just wanted to share as we open this up today to remind people that what you may have done a year ago or even 3 months ago actually might not serve you anymore. And so I think this conversation today is really important because the personal development conversation is not a new conversation. However, it's a conversation that has expanded over the years, specifically since the internet's come into place. And so for anyone watching this, if you're like, no, I don't need this, or I know how to pick people, I would just encourage you to be really open today because
Yeah,
the industry has changed and we're actually trying to bring the conversation to the expanded aspect of the personal development space. And that's what I want people to remember. Just to listen with an open heart today.
I love that. Thank you so much. And something that I'm feeling guided to bring forward as well is that, you know, we're all equal in the sense that we're each on a unique journey. And when you're feeling a desire to invest in support and working with someone, it doesn't mean that you're giving your power away automatically. And I really want to just mention that because I've also seen in so many different scenarios that, someone will put their coach or their mentor on a pedestal, right?
Hmm.
and they're human too. So it's important to understand that this person is providing a service to you and holding space for you to support you, but that you aren't any less than that person just because they have an area of expertise where you're looking to achieve more mastery in. Does that make sense?
Hmm. I think the expanded part of that conversation is to remind people that when we shift our mindset from looking at it like the way that you just described to looking at it like an opportunity to attract their wisdom and embody that wisdom,
Yes.
it becomes a different relationship with the coach or the mentor.
Yes, absolutely. And so getting down to it, so a couple of signs that could indicate that you can benefit from investing in support in someone. The most obvious one probably is that you don't know how. You feel like you don't know how to do the thing. Whatever it is that you want to do, right? Whether it's starting a solid business or mastering some facet of your life's journey. So, not knowing how is really probably the most obvious one. And another one is that you desire to seek, deeper levels of mastery in a certain area, or maybe even in your life in general, especially when you've experienced an awakening, and even, more than one, because there can be multiple, because we are eternal students and all of us have blind spots. And so it's always beneficial to work with someone, some type of coach or mentor who can actually see some of the blind spots that you might have. Danielle, what are your thoughts on a couple of signs for people to look for?
Signs in terms of like that's the right person, or can you maybe
To
expand on
reach
that a little
out
bit?
to,
To reach out.
yeah.
I'm going to present something that's probably different than what most people think about this because I
Mhm.
think this is a very valuable thing to share. Oftentimes, when we're actually really bothered by a mentor, like we've come across them and we seem like they're the ones that we would want, but we're kind of like put off and we're like, well, who the F are they? And like they kind of seem like they're triggering something in you, basically.
Mhm.
That is not something to be afraid of, actually. That's something to explore because that's actually showing you normally that vibration is showing you an aspect of you, and that person's already in that aspect, most often going to give you the clarity around it anyways. And so we can look for all the feel good signs and like, oh, I love that person's values and all of this cool stuff. But
Mhm.
it's also something to look at if that person triggers you, because it's not a bad thing if a mentor triggers you. It's actually an indicator of resonance on that same frequency with you. And that's something that I don't think enough people as well look for, right? They kind of shy away, like, oh, I don't like that person. I'm not gonna explore that. Where some of my greatest mentors started with that resistance to begin with. And then I realized why I was resistant.
Yeah, that's such an excellent point to make. I mean, those people are essentially holding up a mirror for us. And just to expand on that a bit, it's not, central to this particular topic that we're talking about today, but anytime you're feeling triggered
Hmm.
by anybody,
Yeah.
it's an opportunity, right, to do some deeper exploration.
Well, and I even think sometimes if it seems too easy, like, oh, I found my perfect person, there they are. Oftentimes that's actually not your perfect person for your soul. It's the perfect person for your ego because the ego likes the ease of that. So that's also something to highlight as well, right? Like just because the person hops in your lap, like it can be really easy and effortless, but it can also be an indicator that it's too easy. It's not in alignment, and it's what your ego wants, not what your soul wants.
Absolutely. I see there are a couple of people that have joined us too, so be sure to say hello and definitely feel free to jump right into the conversation with us and certainly let us know about any questions you have. Something I'd love to add on the point that you just made is for some reason I'm losing my train right now. But something else I'd love to add to the point that you just made is really feeling clear. Another tip would be to just really feel clear on the deeper motivation behind the decisions you're making around support, right?
Hmm.
Because to your point, which was such an excellent one, is it ego based, or is it really coming from your soul's guidance? Are you really following an action as a result of your intuition?
Yeah. Yeah. I had actually made a note here from earlier when you said something. One of the things we see in the personal development space is not enough of a a desire to reflect. Meaning, if you come across someone that you think you might want to work with, we kind of just go off like the immediate reaction, like I said, either where you feel like, oh, I turned off by that person, which is actually
Mhm.
showing us something, or it's like, oh, I found my person, and that's what it is. But what about if you just took an extra 5 minutes or, couple days and did a little bit more research on that person and really connected with who they were and their vibration and how you felt around their other content, not just their sales content or their offer, but like everything they put out. Because we immediately, which is again ego driven behavior, go to the first thing that's easy. But what about if you just took the time to ask your soul, let me just look who this person really is and do they actually align with me? Because that could be the answer where intuitively you hear, no, actually, now that I've done my soul research on the person I want to hire, it doesn't align. But people get so lazy that they don't do that step. And that I think is a really important step, especially when we're talking about discernment about who to hire and not to hire. Do yourself a favor and explore that for yourself because you're the only one that can do that.
We are so in sync today because I actually had that down as a note to
Yep.
bring up in our conversation. That's probably the most important thing, right?
Hmm.
Um, because, so many people are conditioned to seek external validation outside of themselves. And because of that environmental, programming, they can often have a tendency to make ego based decisions around who they're choosing to invest in working with. So I love that you bring that up. And so going within your soul, right, to add to that, it's so important to know how that alignment, how that truth feels to you, right? Because that could vary based upon the person. So I mean, I would say just going that route first thing, right?
Hmm.
Beyond, most people know right away whether or not they're going to click with someone. They feel it, but most people question those feelings.
Hmm. It's no different than going to the bookstore into the personal development and you go to pick up a book and then you bring it home and it sits on your shelf for the rest of your lifetime. Well, you didn't obviously explore your soul to see if that was in alignment with you versus spending a couple minutes at the bookstore looking at it and going, is this really what my soul's pulling me towards? Is this really what I'm being called towards? And then all of a sudden it's like, no, wait a minute, there's this other book that's speaking to me. Let me go grab that book. It's the same kind of a thing. It's the soul. Like, am I dropping into my soul and really asking what I want? But let's not kid ourselves. This is the hardest thing to do because we are not trained ourselves how to tap into our soul. So people do it once and then they don't get the result and then they don't do it again. The soul is an evolution of figuring out that alignment and tapping into that vibration or that feeling that you just talked about. You don't just do it once, you have to do it consistently so that you can actually feel and tune in to what those vibes are, good or not good.
Yeah, yeah. It's like work a lot like working a muscle.
Well, it is. It's not a lot
Yeah.
like it absolutely is. It's an
Mhm.
energetic field in which you can change based on how you consistently compound the energy, right?
Absolutely. And I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, but Hedfi, thank you for joining us. Please let me know if I said your name correctly. um, So anyone else who's joined, please let us know and join us in the conversation. Let's talk about, you touched on this briefly earlier. Let's talk a little bit more about what are some of the different things that people can look for in terms of selecting the person that feels highest aligned for them for support. You had mentioned, we talked a little bit about following your soul's guidance, which I believe is the most important thing. But there are other things that people can do in the midst of their research too, right?
Hmm. There's all kinds of things that people
Yeah.
can do, honestly. But I think one of the things I could go into saying a bunch of things, but I think the one thing I want to leave in this conversation today is, man, your soul always knows best. If you just allow
Hmm.
that space for your soul to deliver you the guidance, you might be guided to look at someone or someone comes across your path in the most unconventional way, but that would never have happened if you didn't allow that space of your soul. So we can continue to tell you all these things, but ultimately
Yeah.
it's about giving yourself the space to just go inwards and be like, what am I seeking? What is it that I'm looking for? And who is the best person for me? And then allowing the universe to match that desire.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that you bring that up. Kathy has joined us as well. Hi, Kathy.
Hi,
Thanks
Kathy.
for joining us. Um, can you
So,
repeat that last
yeah.
part?
Yeah. So soul, giving yourself the space of your soul and being like, instead of just right away, like, oh, let's tell everyone what to do. It's like, well, actually, why don't we just tell you to tap and drop into your
Yes,
soul?
yes, yes. Like, I think I need to ground a little bit more. I'm
Okay,
just,
well,
I
take a
don't know.
moment. Just close your eyes right now. Take a moment. Right? It's the same
Yes,
thing we're telling people. Just drop in your soul for a second, get reconnected, right? This is the thing. Everyone
yes,
thinks they don't have time for this. It's like, okay,
yes,
well, just take the moment right now. Who cares? We're on live stream, ground yourself.
totally. And Shannon Ryan has joined us as well. Hi, Shannon.
Shannon.
And what I wanted to say on in response to what you just shared was it's such a great point because so many people don't set the intention around who they actually want to call in.
Hmm.
They just get out there, right, and kind of start looking around in the sea of people that are out there rather than just manifesting the person that they want to call in, getting really clear, not so much about like who the person might be, so without the label, but more about, what are the attributes of that person.
Yeah.
So I love that you brought that up.
Yeah, it even goes as far as removing the term manifest it. Like it's not, it's an attraction. Sure, we can call it that, but ultimately if you drop in your soul and ask, it's an attraction of that match of that desire.
It's an energetic match. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the expanded conversation to personal growth that we've been bringing over this series is like, here's the personal growth. Oh, by the way, there's an energetic game wrapped around it. And that's exactly what we've been sharing with people.
Absolutely. Yeah. Kathy says, yes, I agree. I can drop into my heart, but I never thought about dropping into my soul. Very interesting. Going to practice this. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I say this a lot, our mind is a faithful servant. It is, and there's a purpose for it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have it. But our soul always knows. Our soul has the blueprint,
Mm-hmm.
for this
Mm-hmm.
incarnation here.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing too, we can play the 3D human world where it's all like personal development this, Tony Robbins this, Gabby Bernstein, like
Yes.
all these top people, Brene Brown, all these top people. Those are just the people that are at the top that all the publishers and all these big companies are pushing towards you. Is that truly what you're here to experience? Probably not. There's probably someone who's smaller and like has a tiny following that you don't even know about that's about to cross your path, but will only happen if you allow it. So that's moving away again from what everyone's telling me to do. What are the big players in society? How do I actually try to find the small player within that?
Mm-hmm. Yep, that goes back to the programming that we've talked about so many times of, looking outside of yourself for validation.
Mm-hmm.
As to what to do. And that is what a lot of people do. They look at who some of the people in the industry that have some of the larger followings and, oh, well, I'll just do that because it's easier. And that's the other thing too, is when it comes to following your soul's guidance and reaching out for support to expand on your path, you're not deciding how you like your toast,
Yep.
And all roads lead back to how we feel about and treat ourselves.
Totally.
So the
Totally.
level of priority and importance that you put on your growth and on your path is going to be directly reflected back to you.
Yeah, and I mean the other thing for people to remember in this personal development conversation is what is personal development? Like we're not here for a personal journey. We're here for a soul experience in a human vessel, a human body. And so the personal development only develops us in the 3D world. It only develops us in our 3D sense. And so if you truly want to ascend beyond that, you have to also stretch your mind to think beyond that. Like, oh, I never thought that maybe there's a whole other thing that would support the personal development side if I pair it with the spiritual stuff. Oh, I'm working in my spiritual and my personal development now, versus people are just like, oh, I got to do personal development because that's what society says to do. That's
Yeah.
only developing one aspect of you that is not even your soul, it's your human.
Yeah. You're on fire today. It's
Thanks.
a great point because personal development's the most common term, right? But you're absolutely on point. I mean, this is like Earth school. Where
it is.
our bodies are the vessel for that. Our soul is having an experience. It's experiencing an incarnation, here in this body.
Yeah.
Not the other way around, which is, what happens a lot too, is that many people get, wrapped up or blinded by what's happening in the immediate 3D reality. And so they end up taking an external approach to something that needs to be approached, to your point, internally in order to create a different result.
Yeah, and the other thing too to remember is yes, there are certain things that our human body has to be developed around. For instance, discipline is not a soul thing. Your soul
Mhm.
supports the ability to create discipline in your life. So, for instance, you would go in the personal development space to learn about how you create discipline in your physical reality. Absolutely, you would do that. But once you create that discipline, then how do you align the soul desire to leverage the discipline that you finally created? So that I just wanted to give that example so people can see you still need the personal development stuff because you still have to develop the human. But then you have
Yeah,
to translate it back over to the soul. And that's again where people kind of miss a step. They just do the discipline stuff and don't do the soul discipline work.
right. They're not connecting all the dots. Kathy says, so many of us don't realize that we are not aware at times. Absolutely. I mean, that's really the first step, right? Is just having an awareness.
Yeah, and I think it's important to share on this right now because we want to deliver value and expand people's minds.
Hmm.
Awareness is a frequency. So we when we are not mindful and we are not catching our overthinking or overanalyzing, we sit in a place of lack of awareness. When we take our time to ask ourselves, oh, what was that? Or how do I ground myself in more of a present state? Or how do I be more mindful today? You're actually developing like a muscle, your awareness, and then it just becomes your everyday. And so, if we want to talk about awareness, again, it's a muscle you develop by introducing awareness into your life, and then it just becomes your natural.
Right, by creating space for it.
Yeah, but it doesn't just happen, right? And that's the problem. Most of us don't have awareness because we don't take time to introduce it into our reality.
Yeah, no, because so many, there's a tendency to live in a way where it's like life is happening to you. And that's exactly what happens for people who don't create the space to experience increased awareness when it's really, and I know we've talked about this so many times, it's really the other way around. It's when you create that space, right?
Hmm.
That you step into your power as a creator to design your own life, and that's really what we're here to do. There's so much inversion out there, which is a whole other episode and conversation that we could talk about, but we're sovereign creators. It's our birthright.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, we become blind to that, to certain extents, and some people never become aware of that throughout their incarnation here, and other people do have that awareness. Um and I think that's one of the reasons why I was excited to do this series with you too, was just for the expansion piece to help people
Hmm.
to create new levels of awareness on their path.
Yeah, and I think Kathy, I'm so grateful you're here today, and I'd love to just kind of riff on this quickly because this is really good for people to see. One of the things Kathy's talking about is it sounds like awareness. Many of us don't realize that we're not aware at times. Just the fact that Kathy is saying that she doesn't think she's aware at times is actually indicating to you, Kathy, that you actually have more awareness than you want to give yourself credit for because you can actually acknowledge it. But then the next comment that Kathy wrote is, my problem is that I am too analytical. So here's the crazy part is one, Kathy, you actually have awareness around awareness, but you slip back into this idea that I'm too analytical. And so it overpowers your
Mhm.
ability to actually be aware of self. The easiest way to transmute that is to just no longer sit in a word track into a belief that my problem is that I'm too analytical. You're not too analytical. It's just that you haven't allowed your ego mind to not be the overpowering aspect of you. When you allow your soul to come in, there's no over analytical in the soul. And
Mhm.
so again, it's just allowing how do I bring in more of my soul? And that's why she was saying, I never thought about dropping into my soul. That could be the very thing, Kathy, that helps you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think you made this point too, Danielle, but understanding, really tuning into the difference between your soul's guidance and the mind, right? The
Hmm.
ego mind. Understanding that your soul, at a soul level, you're never going to receive guidance that says you're too anything or less than anything, right?
No.
And it's never going to be fear based. All of the over analyzing and the fear based stuff all comes from the ego mind. And I think like that's just the easiest way for anybody who's creating more space to tune into their soul's guidance to start to tell the difference and to do what you said, which is, bringing themselves back every time they're recognizing that.
The irony in this too, Jennifer, is that so many people think this is like you have to go through this massive soul transition and like this big awakening to have this happen. It's not. It's the desire and the discipline every day for 5 minutes to drop into your soul to start to develop that relationship and to embody a higher frequency. It's not some big thing. It's just the decision every
Right.
day to start to introduce that, right?
Yeah, those shifts can happen as quickly as we allow them to, essentially. That just goes back to a belief about that, change has to be hard
Yeah,
and
well,
that anything we want to accomplish has to feel difficult.
like you just said though, how does the change have to be difficult in the soul? It's not. It
Right.
craves
It
change.
doesn't.
It wants change. It thrives off change. So when we look at change uncomfortable, you're in the ego. When you look at it like you're excited that you're like uncomfortable, but it's the right thing, you're totally in your soul, right? You know the difference. You can feel the difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kathy's saying you ladies are the first ones who didn't say to me, yes, you are. I believe she's referencing the comment about being too analytical. Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
we're dropped
because
into
we
our
want
souls.
everybody. Yeah, because we want everyone to experience expansion.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the
Okay.
whole point of this
But that's a
message.
good thing to bring up too, because you're asking the conversation of how do people discern between people that they want to hire and not people that they want to hire. If you truly did your due diligence on the people that you think you want to hire or invest in, you're either going to find that all of the stuff that they put out is all about sales, business, ego 3D, or throughout all of it, you're actually going to find out their authentic story and their authentic truth. The people that don't have the authentic story and authentic truth in any of their marketing are most likely not going to be your people because they can't even see themselves beyond their ego self. So
Absolutely.
that's where that due diligence really benefits people.
Yeah, absolutely. What an exciting conversation.
I love it. Totally soul
Yeah.
driven.
Yeah, it's been
Yeah.
great having this series over the last few weeks. And for anyone who's on with us now, and also anyone who's watching the replay, be sure to comment and let us know when you're watching the replay as well. We are planning, Danielle and I are planning to bundle together all of the videos that we've been doing in this series over the last few weeks. So if anyone is interested in receiving lifetime access to those, please be sure to comment and let us know, and then we will follow up with you offline on an ETA for that. And anyone that is feeling called to ask any more questions, please let us know now. Any questions that you have, even if you're watching the replay. If you were to go back and watch all of these videos from the last few weeks, and if that's all that you did, if that's the only space that you created to contribute to your growth, your life would be transformed with the information that we've shared.
It would be transformed because exactly what we talked about is it's an energy game and it's a frequency. Everything that we did over
Yes,
these last four videos is a higher frequency. So if people really want to play that energy game and the soul game, this is how you do it. This is called a frequency shift from other people just by you listening,
mm-hmm.
which is why some people get greater results by listening to certain people versus listening to the same person for 5 years and not getting anything. It's because they're at a different vibration. So I'm really excited for people to rewatch this. I'm excited for people to engage in this, and I'm excited for people to rewatch this so that they can continue to anchor in this higher vibration and make it easier on themselves by leveraging what we've created in this space right here.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would definitely encourage people to even watch these more than once. because what can often happen, right, is the first time that you're listening or watching, you're picking up on certain things, but not other things. And as you go back, your frequency continues to rise, and you continue to pick up on additional things that are brought forward. So I'm super, super excited to be able to share this series. Danielle, in closing, is there anything else you're feeling guided to bring forward?
In closing, what I would say, Jennifer, is repetition.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone wants the hack, everyone wants the easy way, but no one wants to do the same thing over and over again. The same thing over and over again is what brings you the transformation. The 10,000 hours is what creates the shift in your frequency. And so if you want to watch these once, fine. But if you truly want to embody this, put them on repeat and you'll just naturally ascend. It's that easy if you let it be that easy.
Absolutely. The repetition, and also approaching this from a place of willingness, right? To be open to the truth that the shifts that you desire can happen literally as fast as you allow them to.
Yeah, and that's a quantum conversation.
Yes, it is.
Right.
We can have a lot more conversations.
Yeah, well, I'm glad we had some. Kathy, I'm glad you showed up today.
Yeah, thanks, Kathy. Thanks, Shannon. Thanks, everyone who joined us for the conversation today. We appreciate you, and I know I can speak on behalf of Danielle that we feel very honored to be in this place where we're able to bring forth and share this knowledge with you. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jennifer.
Thanks.